Thank you, Troy. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be invited here. I'll just start in the way that I'm most familiar, which is to offer a little prayer before we begin. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be ever loving in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So, do you know that I had never heard of Pajama Day before being invited to speak here? So, this is going to be an interesting sermon because this is a lot of exploration and newness for me as well. So, I hope we can journey together. Over here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we have something similar in June, which is to raise funds for kids in hospitals. But I'm gathering it's a little different here, that it's about raising money for foster kids, and that it's a pretty big day in Australia. And given how comfy it is to wear pajamas to church, I'm thinking we should probably make it a bigger deal here too. I've had a couple of chats with Reverend Jamie to prepare for today, and she mentioned that Holy Hermits has also done a little bit of their own thinking about Pajama Day in relation to this gathering, and that you celebrate this day as a reminder that everyone should come as they are to church, whether that means lying down in a bed, whether that means from inside a hospital or even while wearing pajamas. Is that about right? I'm seeing some thumbs up. Good. That's good. So I'm a really big fan of this perspective, not only because I think that wearing my dressing gown makes me look a little more biblical, which is quite nice, I think. But also because I really do think that church should be about people turning up as they are. That the church should be for people, for real people, the people who work really hard throughout the week and may feel too tired to dress up on a Sunday. The people who have kids with sporting events on the weekends. The people who have limited emotional capacity. The people who need diverse supports to engage and flourish, the people who are longing for a little bit less performance and a little bit more rest with family and community. In other words, the people with messy lives with many demands on their attention, energy, and health. And I'm hoping that's not just me, because I will admit I am a little messy at times, but hopefully that speaks to all of us. Which is why I really like the Holy Hermits' thinking on this. What if church was just a bit more about coming as you are? And I think that our gospel reading suggests that this is a very important thing. So we have the story of Mary and Martha, a very familiar story, responding to Jesus in different ways. And much has been made of these differences, sometimes with traditions kind of pitting Mary and Martha against each other in some way. So the academic and theological comparisons between Mary and Martha are many. Some see Mary's response as the higher form of honoring God and Martha's response as lower. Some have argued that Mary was positioning herself as a leader in the church by sitting at Jesus's feet, whereas Martha was falling into a more gendered role. And incidentally, this is based on the belief that women were not allowed to be studying the Torah in Jesus's time, which has been disputed quite recently in some scholarship. Some view the divide between Mary and Martha as symbolic. Mary represents the word, Martha represents deeds. Mary was engaging in learning, whereas Martha has prioritized service. Mary has taken a more contemplative path, whereas Martha is about social activity and activism. But are the activities of the sisters what Jesus is really paying attention to in this passage? Or is it what we focus on? Interestingly, we can see that Martha focuses on activities. She becomes so focused on the activities between herself and Mary that she becomes a little outraged. Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. I may have added a little emphasis. I'm the eldest sibling in my family, and I relate to Martha's frustration a little bit. Martha sees the activities, and I think we often see the activities too, comparing Mary and Martha with what they were doing and then creating theologies to support that. But I think Jesus responds a little differently. Martha, Martha, you are distracted and worried about many things. Jesus doesn't really focus on the mode, like at all. He focuses pretty squarely on Martha's heart. Why are you so worried? And then Jesus speaks about Mary, and this is the point where it seems like comparison is the obvious response. Mary has chosen the better part. Surely this is about Mary sitting at Jesus's feet, right? The spiritual posture is better than a practical one. But at this point, it is worth looking a little more deeply at the language used. James A. Wallace argues that in Greek, it reads that Mary has chosen the good part, which carries connotations of life-giving connection to God. Now, what does this mean, this connection to God? Is Martha not connected to God because she is serving food instead of sitting at Jesus's feet? Is connection about physical proximity? I mean, physical postures can be important. In the Anglican Church, we often believe that we demonstrate inward postures by outward expressions, for example, baptism. But we can also take this a little far. Are we saying that Mary is more connected to God because she is physically sitting at Jesus's feet? Or perhaps that Mary's learning posture leads to more connection than Martha's practical service posture? Or is Jesus focusing on the state of heart of those sisters? A Presbyterian minister, Cynthia A. Jarvis, notes that Martha's anxiety in this moment is significant. She suggests that for Martha, anxiety and busyness have become a personal measuring stick for her own value. And I want to be careful here because I'm conscious that sometimes in church spaces we have suggested that anxiety itself is a problem, that the emotion of anxiety is an issue. And I really don't want to suggest that, because I think that anxiety is just an emotion and something that some of us struggle with quite a bit. So it's not necessarily a moral wrong that Martha is anxious, but using that emotion to measure herself against Mary is an interesting issue for Jesus here. And I think this is what Jesus is challenging. Martha pits herself against Mary, a tradition that we have continued, and then values their respective activities according to that emotion and according to that anxiety. And isn't this just a familiar tune? How often do churches measure their success by their anxious busyness? How often do church leaders measure themselves this way? Clearly, faithfulness to God is measured by things like this: how anxious we are, how stressed we are, how tired we are, how busy we are, or by the clothes we wear. And perhaps one of the saddest parts of how we compare Mary and Martha, how Martha compares them, is the assumption that Jesus is more for Mary or Martha. But what I see is that Jesus is decidedly for both sisters, and he proves this by removing Martha's yardstick. He names her anxiety and calls to her in it. Martha, do not measure yourself this way. Don't compare. Value yourself more than this. Serve in your own beautiful way. Allow others to serve differently. Mary is coming as she is. Only one thing is needed. Come as you are, Martha. The reminder of the gospel this morning for me, and I hope for us, is that we are gathering in our pajamas as a reminder that God is for us as we are. We are not measured by our busyness or anxiety. And actually, these things are not Christian ethics necessarily. We have built into our tradition rest. And actually, we're not measured by a number of other things either. The beauty of our churches, the quality of our musicians, the poetry of our liturgies. We are not measured by how we choose to gather in a building or on Zoom. We aren't even measured by our clothes. This is the reminder, the beautiful insight of holy hermits for Pajama Sunday. Come as you are, in clothes or in pajamas. In your questions, in your struggles, in all your doubts and fears, with all of yourself, with all of your history, all of your pain and struggle, only one thing is needed. Come as you are. Amen.